This is the murder of Terry Missy Bever. At approximately 4 a.m. on April 18, 2016, 45-year-old Terry Missy Bever arrived at the Creekside Church of Christ in Midtoland, Texas, as Bever was preparing one of the church classroom for an early morning gladiator boot camp class, which she taught to members of the community. When her student arrived, just 1 hour later, they made an alarming discovery. The student found Bever unresponsive, and she appeared to have been physically assaulted. In addition to blunt force trauma to the head, Bever had multiple wounds in her chest. Bever's student called 911, and paramedics rushed to the scene. However, it was simply too late. Bever was pronounced dead at the scene. It was clear to authorities that Bever had been murdered, though at first they were unsure who killed her or what the motive could have been. Authorities initially suspected Bever was killed due to an attempted robbery, but church administrators confirmed nothing was missing from the premises. It was also determined that none of Bever's belongings, including her wedding ring, was stolen. A later search of the building revealed several windows were broken, which had signs of forced entries. Law enforcement officials were further assisted by security footages, which capture of the assailant inside the church and the time Bever was killed. The person who was wearing what appeared to be full police tactical gear and had their face covered stunned authorities. Officials also weren't able to determine their gender. However, per the footage, the possible assailant range of height clocking in between 5'2" and 5'7", and the person unique gait. Per the footage, the suspect walked with a pronounced limp with their feet pointing outward, but their most chilling observation was that the suspect had a hammer in his or her hand. Soon after receiving the footage, the Miltonian Police Department released surveillance footage soon into the investigation in hopes that someone would recognize the assailant. Later on, law enforcement also discovered surveillance footages of a vehicle believed to be connected to Missy Bever murder. In the hours before she was killed, a person was recorded slowly driving through a nearby parking lot. Reported into 2021 that the vehicle, which is believed to be a 2010 or 2012 Nissan Altima or Infiniti G37, stopped to park before eventually leaving. Authority also received tips that a dark-colored SUV was seen leaving the church parking lot at approximately 4:30 a.m. Unfortunately, the owner of the car did not come forward after the video was released. During the investigation, detective questioned Missy Bever's husband, Brandon Bever. Although he had an alibi, authorities hoped he could offer possible insight into the homicide. During his interview with police, Brandon said he couldn't think of anyone who would have wanted to harm his wife. He also told detectives that he and Missy had a happy marriage. Though the story wasn't as simple as that, further investigation revealed Brandon and Missy were having financial and personal problems, including infidelity. Despite this, Brandon was ruled out as a suspect. Authorities were also suspicious of Brandon's father, Randy. In the weeks following the murder, Randy took a blood-soaked shirt to a local dry cleaner. Though he insisted the blood was from breaking up a dog fight, nevertheless, the dry cleaner contacted authorities after hearing about Missy's murder on the news. Authorities issued a warrant for the shirt, which was then sent to be tested by forensic analysts. Despite the fact that the shirt had been washed before they received it, the blood was testable, and testing eventually confirmed it had come from a dog, just as Randy said. Authorities also noted that Randy matched the general height and weight of the person in the church surveillance footage and also walked with a limp. However, he had a solid alibi for the morning of Missy's murder. He was in California at the time. Over the course of the investigation, authorities examined Missy Bever's electronic device and social media accounts. In 2016, Bever was active in the professional social networking site LinkedIn. Authorities learned that Bever had been in communication with one man in particular between January 2016 and the day of her death. In those 3 months, authorities said the conversation between the two had turned flirtatious and familiar. Law enforcement official contacted the man, who admitted having an online friendship with Bever. However, he was never named as a suspect. Bever also received what she told friend was a creepy and strange message from a man she did not know. The message, which was also sent via LinkedIn, was received 3 days before she was killed. Up until this day, it is unknown whether authorities ever identified the offender or whether he was considered a person of interest or suspect in Missy Bever murder. Based upon tips received about the SUV seen leaving the church parking lot, authorities identified Bobby Wayne Henry as a person of interest. Henry was a former police officer who admittedly still owned tactical gear he was issued when he worked for the police force. He also drove a dark-colored SUV and walked with a pronounced limp. Henry was dismissed from the police department when he was charged with sexual assault in 2017. Despite that charge and another charge related to possession of child pornography, Henry was employed part-time as a security guard. There was a number of concerns that led authorities to take a closer look at Henry and his possible involvement in Missy Bever murder. However, he was several inches taller than the person seen in the church surveillance footage and was ultimately eliminated as a suspect. In the years since Missy Bever 2016 murder, authorities have not made any arrests or identified any suspect in her homicide case. Authorities have received more than 3,000 tips. Unfortunately, they have not received enough information to make an arrest, and authorities still have not established the identity of the person seen in the church surveillance video. But even though Bever murder has remained unsolved for 7 years running, law enforcement officials have not deemed the case cold, and the investigation is currently active. My prayers and condolences go out to Missy Bever's family, most importantly her children that she left behind. May her soul rest in peace. Until next time on the Meaningful Talk Crime Doc, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will catch up with you in the comment section.